question of the role of the chairman, and I want to just respond in this manner, my lords. Section 5 of the IBC Act defines what a commission is. And a commission is defined to include the chairman of the IBC and the members. That definition, my lords, contrary to the submissions by Mr. Karori, senior counsel, does not include and expressly excludes the staff of the commission. It cannot therefore lie in the mouth of counsel to submit that the verification and the tallying of the results of the presidential elections, insofar as Form 34As and 34Bs were concerned, was done by the staff and excluded the commission, who were confined to other duties. My lord, that was a violation and an infraction that expressly went against the requirements of Article 138(3)(c). Secondly, my lords, the submissions by learned friend, senior counsel, Professor Githu Muigai, on the executive status of the chairman of the IBC, I think should be taken with a pinch of salt, because Article 249(1) of the Constitution does not contemplate an imperial chairman who is all-fearing with fear, favor, fervor, and fiat. That is not the chairman that we have. The chairman of the IBC, appointed under Article 250 sub-article 4 of the Constitution, must be that chairman who is a first amongst equals, just like the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. A primus inter pares who must work with his colleagues to guide the affairs of the Commission. I urge the Court, therefore, to decline an invitation by Professor Githu Muigai that the chairman of the IBC is in a special position different from the 4 commissioners who are crying aloud to be heard by this court. And my lords, this petition number 5, as consolidated, therefore tilts on the violation of Article 138(3)(c). It tilts on that violation. And that violation alone, my lord, therefore invites this court to look at or to turn to Articles 23 of the Constitution on your role as a court to interpret the Constitution in a manner that goes beyond just protecting human rights, my lords, but to look at what would guide your interpretation, the holistic approach, the purposive approach, and let me borrow my learned friend's approach, the Antonin Scalia's approach, the late judge of the U.S. Supreme Court, the textual and the contextual approach. And if you apply those approaches, my lord, then you will find that the chairman of the IBC, in failing to properly construe his role under 138(3)(c) and 138(4), violated the Constitution, and an unconstitutional process therefore emerged that cannot put into place, my lord, a process that violates Article 3(2). My lords, there is an invitation to you to invalidate the entire process. And that is why in answering in answering the Supreme Court judge's question that was directed at me on remedies, I wish to state that, and this is because this court also has a purpose under Section 3 of the Supreme Court Act. And given that you're an election court under 84, in an ideal situation where you are construing Section 83 of the Elections Act, which must be interpreted disjunctively, because if there's an unconstitutional act, then the election cannot stand. If quantitatively, as we shall demonstrate, there is non-compliance, again, you'll have to invalidate the election. But my lord, in an ideal situation where you'd have been called upon to apply Article 232 on public service and Article 201 on public finance, you would have ordered a recount and then secured a winner. But this would only have been possible if there were no unconstitutional infractions that undermine the process and therefore make it unconstitutional. Because this is no longer about tallying and verification. It is about the bigger process of the involvement of commissioners and a split commission. And the only remedy available, my lords, Justice Ouko, the Chief Justice and member of the court, is a nullification. This is no longer the baby of RAILA Amolo Odinga V. This is no longer the baby of William Samoei RUTO, Dr. the first respondent. This is the baby of Wanjiku. It is the baby of Kenyans. Return this baby to Kenyans to determine to whom they shall hand over the baby after 60 days. I pray that you nullify the election. And I will cede my time now to Mr. Senator of Busia County, Okeya Omtata, the perennial litigant. Thank you.
Distinguished honorable members of this court, I'll begin my submissions by requesting that my PowerPoint presentation be played.
Just to respond on points of law.
My lady, there was a question that was posed by Justice Ouko.
Yes.
To which Mr. Mohammed answered.
Okay.
And I would like to make a clarification on that. On the points of law, I think Professor has covered.
Okay. So you're only answering the question by the court?
Yes, my lady. Could the time be stopped, please, so that yes, we are going to interrogate the figures that were used here to attempt to mislead this court. I'll begin by asking the officer to play the slide number 6. That slide that contains results, when I looked at it, and my other co-petitioners, we found that the maths did not add up. And that for us was a smoking gun, because figures don't lie. So, and I would also ask the court to realize that the comments we made about that particular result have not been challenged. That when you add the totals for the individual parties, you don't get the total ascribed. But the total ascribed is available in the workings and the affidavits of the members of the commission, which means we are dealing with fiction. I would request that you go to slide number slide number 5. And the Honorable Judge asked, how are these things transmitting? So when you look at the fact that at 17 hours, we had 21,481,652 voters or returns which had been made, and we factor into when we try to calculate the average number per voting station, we were told we are given 46,299 polling stations. If you divide 22,120,458 by 46,299, you arrive at an average figure of 478, which is not very far from when you take 65% of 700, which is the maximum number you can have in a polling station, you end up with 455. So when you now come and using the 478, which is the average we have had, and divide 21,481,652, you get 44,962. From paragraph 29 of Mr. Chebukati's replying affidavit, The figure he gives is that 45,994 kids reported. Now, from this, you already see that if the kids were 46,299 and 45,994 had reported, you are only left with 305 kids. These are kids which had connected, so the question of saying that these kids were looking for connection is not there. These kids were connected and they discharged their mandate. And you have been told here that there were some kids in Eldoret who are pinging the same, we are sending results from Eldoret, I don't know, from wherever, when kids being used. So at that time, you get that the 305 kids, which may not have had network, if you multiply that figure by the maximum number of votes available, you will find that the 700, if you multiply that, you'll get a figure of about 213,500 votes. That's the maximum that could be transmitted, not 2 million votes. And also, if you went by my working of 1,337 kids, then the maximum amount you could get is 638,806. So the KIMS kits that transmitted are not these ones that reported at that time. But the data, the fact that they held so much data was mined. So somebody could transmit remotely, mining the data that was already reported in these polling stations. And that's how the fraud happens. For the workings on slide number 2, where you can clearly see that if we use the 21,481,652 as the baseline and the 12,065,803 as the baseline, you find these workings coming out, and you can see that 1.6 million votes are being submitted between 17 hours and 2045, and on and on. But most important, even if we were to buy the idea that they were connecting, you have got 508,647 ballots on page 3, slide 3, which transmitted after a period of 3 hours and 45 minutes. So those particular transmissions of 508,647 are a figure that's very curious, because if you deduct the tally for Eldas from this figure, you hit almost the exact figure that Mr. Willis, Land Council Willis, has presented to this court, coming from the KPMG audit, that there was that number of voters, there was a number of ghost voters equivalent to that one. When we go to the other thing that supports our position, there was a question of what was the denominator used for voter turnout. I will invite you to look at at the petition at page 41. There's a letter, a press statement signed by Mr. Chebukati, saying that he used the National Voter Register to calculate, and if I may just read it quickly to the court. So page 41 is handwritten 41. It says, paragraph 2, at around 4 p.m., 12,069,803 registered voters out of 12,065,803 voters out of 22,120,458 had cast their vote. This equates to 56.17% of voter turnout.
How much do you need? Because we have the slide.
5 minutes, just 5 minutes.
Could we give you 2 minutes to finish?
Yes, please. put here that you will refer to the slides. So when I look at that, you'll find that there's no basis for claiming that the figure that claiming that the KIMS kits were used as the denominator. It's not possible, and it's not there. Also, I would like this court to take note of how the percentages are being played with. That's slide number 10. You will find that whereas the chairman is reported 12,065,803 people voted, who voted represented 56.17 of the total registered voters of 22 that. At paragraph 26 of the replying affidavit, Mr. Sunkuli, using the same number of voters, 12,065,803, but as reported by the chairman, but again as a different number as a denominator, he arrives at the same percentage. So there you can see how they can play with numbers by changing the denominators and arriving at magical figures. So my members of the Honorable Court, my prayer is that my submissions are that these figures are cooked, they were worked backwards to achieve a certain figure, but fortunately on the Form 34C, the smoking gun is seen. And since figures don't lie, and if the math doesn't add up, then this court should quash the results. We were told about military precision. Military precision is the ability to shoot a bullet with a bullet. That's how a missile downs another missile. That is not what we are saying here. There's no military precision in these figures.
The last petitioner, 7th petitioner, Julia Nyoka Bichege, and others.
May it please you, my lady, Madam CJ, and other members of the court, to go straight to the issue. I've had a lot of Shakespeare and other learned fellas. I went to public schools. I may not be able to remember anything about Shakespeare. But Madam CJ, besides a Greek philosopher known as Plotinus and Adam Smith, my favorite philosopher is called Karl Marx. And one of the most famous quotes that he made is this, that history repeats itself, first as tragedy, second as farce. Now, I go to my issue. Yesterday, Madam CJ, when I was listening to my learned colleague, Mr. George Oraro, Senior Counsel, I could not fail seeing the echoes of 2007 in what is happening today. Madam CJ, in 2007, the secretary to the commission, just like this year, was at the heart of what happened. The secretary was called Suleiman Chege. The secretary today is called Hussein Marjani. Same problem of numbers. The Kenya law reports would bear, and Mr. Isa Mansour is also here, that I represented Samuel Kivuitu and others when they were removed from office. Now, it turns out that, and listening to my colleagues, that just like in 2007, the person who knew why the results are like that was Suleiman Chege. Listening to the presentation yesterday, it also appears that the only person who really can tell us about these numbers is Hussein Marjani. Second similarity is that both RAILA Odinga and William RUTO were at the heart of what happened in the year 2007. But that is not the more important point. The more important point is the differences. The differences were these. In 2007, and under the constitution that was existing that time, the election was announced on the 30th of December 2007. And the president sworn on that day assumed office. But the difference this year is this. After 15th courtesy of the new constitutions, on the 15th of August when the declaration was made, the person designated as the winner by Chebukati became president-elect. That's an important distinction. The second most important distinction is this, that the former constitution of Kenya did not have an equivalent of 138 of the constitution. There is that distinction today, which is what I was calling stage 3 of a presidential election. It was never there. The next issue was that in 2007, the presidential elections were held by the High Court under its original jurisdiction and special jurisdictions of elections. This one comes to the Supreme Court, and the basis upon which that is done is on the basis of Article 140 of the Constitution. There is no sitting president who will be appearing before you. There is only a president-elect. Now, my first petitioner, Julia Chege, asked me, because there was a subjective question that was posed in her view by Judge Smoky Nwanjala, that how come there was no protestations by these people when they were being given domestic chores? According to Julia Chege, who had to resign from her university job as a lecturer, there is something that needs to be understood, that for 99% of the human population, you want to follow the natural order of things. You don't disturb things. You let them things as they are. So that to Julia Chege, it is important that the court must understand that from your point of view, a lot of you, and she knows that history, have had a previous opportunity to stand up for something, an opportunity to say no. Not everybody has had that opportunity. And therefore, the 4 commissioners for ultimately, on the 15th, having the courage to have something to stand for. They are heroines and heroes of this country. We come now talking about heroes to what my professor of criminal law and procedure, Dr. Gethu Muigai, said. Dr. Muigai, looking straight to the face of this court, said 2 things. A, the problems in our elections is not IEBC, but the candidates. History does not support that conclusion. Second thing he said, B, Wafula Chebukati is a national hero. I don't have to say anything on that. Now, Madam CJ, there is the issue of the word independent, or in the designation of IEBC. The word independent, it is further elaborated by under Section 26 of the IEBC Act. It says IEBC is independent, but shall be subject to public participation and to engage stakeholders in the discharge of its mandate. Madam CJ and members of this court, I flatter myself quite often that I have a reasonable understanding of Kenya's electoral laws. However, Madam CJ, listening to my learned colleagues yesterday, I had a lot of reasons to doubt whether that is true if what they said is actually the true representation of the law. And in several senses, under Article 81, the election should be simple, accountable, accurate. But until yesterday, my understanding was this, that reference to the Commission and Article 81, 86, 88, and 138 of the Constitution triggers the image of Chebukati and 6 others. I've never imagined Marjani and other returning officers when we talk about the Commission. B, based on sections 10 and 11 of the IEBC Act, my understanding has always been that the Secretary of IEBC is the chief executive, the head of the secretariat, the main employee of the commissioners, who appoints him. But now it appears to be that for purposes of a presidential election, and we heard it from his lawyers, he's actually the main man. Was this what the Constitution wanted it to be? Welcome to the Republic of Kusadikika. I must agree with my learned colleague, Mr. Muthomi Kiethiankulu, that it would appear that since we did our elections, we became some kind of a terrestrial Kusadikika, and several questions arise. When, why, and how? When did this happen? It first happened just before midnight on 9th of August, when we retired to bed. One figure we ought to have had was not known. How many of us voted? That is the when. How did it happen? It happened because on the 8th of August 2022, Wafula Chebukati published that Gazette notice that I'd talked about. On the face of it, makes the chairman a dictator. No, that is not the issue. If you read it as an instruction manual, it was to give the job to Hussein Marjani. That is what happened. Why did it happen? It happened, and we explained in our affidavits, paragraphs 42 to 45, and what they say that effectively, on the 15th of August, when these elections were declared, from 7:30 to 6 p.m. on that day, the commission, as the commission, had lost effective control under Article 138 of the Constitution. I come, because I'm trying to rush myself, to the petition, number 7. This petition, Madam CJ, is actually a numbers petition. I didn't want to make a lot of fuss that I would have needed more time, but in case my mouth does not go fast enough, I urge you that you give me a little leeway to conclude what I need to say. The issue is this, Madam CJ. When you pose the question that you posed, how do you have evidence 700,000 people did not vote? You triggered some kind of public participation on my phone. I had many calls. Kipe, why did you just say it's 700? It's about 3 million. But of course I had to tell them, no, we just said 700 because we had some kind of evidence. So it's a big issue, Madam CJ, that you triggered a public participation. So many people don't vote on account of non-enforcement of Regulation 90 by IEBC. Now, for whatever the value is this. I can demonstrate very shortly, and we've done that in our petition and in our, in our affidavit, that when you have a petition based on non-compliance, how do you prove it? We have an affidavit of Julia Chege that basically has not been controverted. She says where she was voting as an MP she was contesting the office of Kangema, and she said how she interacted with election officials. There were no affidavits sworn by the commissions to say those interactions she talked about were not true. But more importantly is this. When you say Regulation 90 says you are going to publish notices on how election officials and security officers are going to vote, IEBC needed to do a very simple thing. Namely, what did you publish to implement it? If you didn't publish anything to implement it, you are responsible for non-compliance. How do you treat non-compliance? You tell the Supreme Court. We could not be able to have non-compliance for reason A, B, C, D. Then the Supreme Court may decide to excuse you or not. But in the absence of that, non-compliance has been proven. What is the effect of this non-compliance? We have stated in our further affidavit, it's a numbers thing. If 700,000 people did not vote and you adjust it whichever way you want, you will still have a figure of 300,000. So that the long and short of it, my ladies and my lords, is this. unless you excuse IEBC, and they did not ask you to excuse them, then you must find that the numbers in petition number 7 could have altered if those people had voted the results of the general election. And therefore, it is not permissible for anybody to be able to say, oh, it's a numbers thing. Petitioners brought no number. We brought numbers, and there was no response. We come to the issues of the issues of the procedure under Article 138. Under Article 138, that's one of the best done judgments that I've read. I've read it many times. It was written by artist Judge Jouko was there writing it. Catherine Mantoinoti was there. He was my people master. One of the best written judgments. I've read it many times. But yesterday, it somehow appeared I don't understand these things. So I read one more time yesterday night. And I thought, I think I understand what it says. So it was violated in 3 major ways, my lady. Number 1 is this, issues of the voter turnout. The issues of the voter turnout until yesterday, I thought is usually settled before the elections through the gazettement of a voters register. For these elections, it was done on the 21st of June 2022 through Gazette number 7290. But listening to my learned colleague, Mr. Somane, it would appear that fairly educated people like James Orengo, Firoz Noroji, Paul Mwangi can actually write petitions, and they were told in open court they did not understand what is all this about Article 190. And I also shuddered that if they didn't understand, probably I also did not. Issues number, the second failure is this. In short, I'm saying the register cannot be mysterious. If the register is mysterious, the election is not simple, does not meet the requirement of Articles 81 and 86. Number 2, the stoppage of the public display. I didn't hear a straight answer to that. Now that there was no straight answer to the issues of the failure of results, and the 27 were not read, that goes straight to the root of the procedure under 138. If that was not done, my lords, there is no way in which you can be able to say the election was valid. For a simple reason, which is this. That when can I have 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Yes, I can read in 2 minutes. For the simple reason that we were dealing with under Article, for the conclusion, the whole point about Article 138 is that the procedure must be concluded. If it is disrupted, you have to hold that Article 138 was violated. The next issue is this, the third one. We talked about the issue of effective control. If you are convinced by what you have heard, and we have gone through this in the last 2-3 days, that IEBC lost effective control from 7:30 on the 15th to 6 p.m. when the result, there can be no basis for this court to say anyone was validly elected as president of Kenya. My learned colleague, Mr. Fred Ngatia, whom I respect a lot, said that William RUTO won these elections fair and square. That expression, fair and square, to my mind, comes from, as I understood, the famous judgment where Judge Madan was in the Githunguri case, where the basic point was this, that certain issues may happen that may make even a person who on the face of it could have been liable for criminal offenses not to be properly tried. And therefore they said it makes any convictions to be bad in law. You do not have a fair and square deal. Under Article 138, Raila Odinga, the other surrogate petitioners, they need a fair and square deal that their votes were not enough Finally, my lady, the Chief Justice, Article 138 must not die in your hands. We are most obliged.
I think that brings us to the end of. Yes, that brings us to the end of rejoinders. We are looking at Senior Counsel, Mr. Mwite, but we know very well your clients were respondents. It was only for the under-representation that we allowed them to come just after the petitioners. They do not have a right of rejoinder.
Chief Justice, I am acutely aware of the time constraints within which this honorable court must adjudicate on this petition. And may I say that this honorable court is entitled, suo motu, to decide that the 14 days specified in Article 140 mean 14 working days. Yes, to exclude Saturday, Sunday, and public holidays. You can do that, suo motu. I am pleading, Chief Justice, I'm pleading on behalf of the 4 commissioners. I plead. They have had very, very little time in this court. I plead.
Well, that is why I was looking at you with the questioning eye, because
Yes.
there were some questions also which were asked, and they need to be responded to.
Yes, those are the ones. I'm just pleading.
Yes.
Allow my colleague Mansu Issa some 8 minutes, and Dr. Aroa some 3 minutes, and yours truly some 2 minutes only.
That is 15 minutes.
Because, yes, because...
To answer those questions.
No, because, Chief Justice,
Yes.
those questions directed at those 4 commissioners are very important. And
Thank
when
you.
others were answering questions,
Yeah.
a lot of maligning, a lot of... Please give them that opportunity to have their case stated. They are the
Okay.
majority in that commission.
Thank you, Senior Counsel. I
thank you.
think we've heard your plea because we asked questions. So we'll give them 15 minutes to answer, not now. We want to take a break. And immediately we finish, there was an issue raised by Senior Counsel Gatia responding to some 2 Forms 34, and you asked for 5 minutes. And then we will give the parties 15 minutes, not all the parties, the ones who are connected with the discovery and the scrutiny, 15 minutes in the afternoon to respond to the report.
I request, Madam Chief Justice, may I request 5 minutes for the Commission, because we are the custodians of the form, the legitimate forms.
Yes.
And my learned friend, Mr. Orengo, needs his lunch now. He's heckling.
Okay, we'll give you 5 minutes, and the court will arise.
counting down the days to our wedding.
No secret stays buried.
Who recorded this?
I don't want to see you again in my life.
Will Angelique, Valentina, and Sebastian overcome their past misfortunes?
How could you betray me, Alonso?
Watch fresh episodes of Vencer el Pasado, uploaded daily on Viusasa, and get the story ahead of everybody else.
Umemaliza high school na unatafuta kole. Come nikusho. Unataka kuwa the next big thing kwa radio ama TV. Come hapa. Imagine pia ina catering. Niaje wase?
Fashion and design. Haiko hapa.
Mechanical engineering nini au sio? And of course IT. Apply now kwa Thika Institute of Business Studies. Au sio wase?
High-quality detergents are designed to clean clothes even better from deep down at the fiber level.
Doffy's strong enzymatic particles remove stains easily. Microcapsule fragrance goes into fibers and give you lasting freshness for the whole day.
Colorful day, wonderful scent.
Sharing is caring. 2-in-1 in a bonga for food. Dial star 126 hash or download my Safaricom app and let's lift one another.
Marichu, you haven't recovered your vision. Marichu,
She can't stay here, Judge Velarde. We must get everything ready so that Estefania can be transferred to a psychiatric clinic.
You help me take care of my kid, and Anahulia will take care of me. And she's a very good friend of mine, and she has a lot of strength to be able to deal with me. Huh?
Wash your hands each time after handling your laundry, cause touching dirty or wet clothes comes with the highest risk of transmission of germs.
Doffy's strong enzymatic particles remove stains easily. Microcapsule fragrance goes into fibers and give you lasting freshness for the whole day.
Colorful day, wonderful scent.
Processed foods can contain high amounts of salt and contribute to increased bloating.
Soft Care Petal Care has a floating design that perfectly fits. It reduces 70% friction on skin, absorbs fully, and blocks leakages from both sides.
Soft Care, yeah.
Imperfections, blackheads. Try Garnier's Pure Active 3-in-1 Charcoal, powered by salicylic acid and purified charcoal to reduce pimple-causing germs by 99.5%. One product, 3 uses for a pure skin. Garnier Pure Active 3-in-1 Charcoal, #1 in South Africa, by Garnier Naturally.
Young man, what are you doing in the dormitory area?
Schoolflix Data Pass is back. Now you can watch all your favorite films for free with 100 MB of data from Safaricom. To get Schoolflix Data Pass, simply tap Data Pass in the app and select Schoolflix. Schoolflix Data Pass, 100 MB to watch your favorite film on Viusasa.
Wakenya wengi wanaendelea kushiriki na kushinda $300,000 kwenye Shabiki Major Leagues Jackpot.
Mimi naitwa Vincent Wanjala kutoka Kakamega. Nimeshiriki hii Shabiki Major Jackpot. Nimeweka mishipi 3, nimeshinda shilingi 1,300. Mimi nataka hata wewe Jesse ushinde vile mimi nimeshinda.
Kuwa mmoja wao. Cheza Major Leagues Jackpot kwa shilingi 10 pekee kwa kutuma neno MJP kwa 29063 na waweza kuwa mshindi. Shabiki Major Leagues Jackpot, the easiest jackpot in Kenya. Not for persons under the age of 18. Betting can be addictive. Play responsibly. Shabiki.com is authorized and regulated by the BCLB. License number 416.
Na mtazamaji, karibu. Kama unavyojua ni kwamba ni bado safari ya kutafuta kujua yakini ya kile ambacho kitaamuliwa katika mahakama ya upeo inaendelea katika siku ya leo. Kuna maswali ambayo yaliulizwa katika wale ambao walikuwa wanawakilisha mlalamishi siku ya kwanza na hapo jana, pia wale ambao wanajitetea upande ule wa IEBC, upande unaowakilisha rais mteule Daktari William Samoei Ruto, pia walipotoa hoja zao. Maswali pia vile vile waweza kuulizwa na siku hii ya leo. Kila mtu alikuwa anapewa fursa ya kuweza kuyajibu yale maswali. Kwanza, upande wa mawakili ambao wanawakilisha upande wa rais mteule, kunazungumzia hoja ya wale walikuwa wanauliza ni vipi baadhi ya matokeo kutangazwa, na wakazungumzia kwamba kweli haraka iliyokuwepo kwa sababu ya hofu ya vile vitu ambavyo vinafanyika, baadhi ya maafisa kuteka nyara, wengine kudhulumiwa, kukamatwa, na upande wengine pia vile vile ukizungumzia uwezekano na tetesi na madai ya udukuzi uliofanyika katika kiwambo kile cha IEBC. Ni mengi yamezungumzwa.